And welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another waffle wrap up. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're going out to the WAFL to talk all things women's and men's footy out in WA. And joining me again, one of my faithful co hosts, one of the guys that helped me start this podcast, that is Rick Gauchi of WaffleFootyFacts.com. Rick, great to see you, sir.
Hey, Donny, good to be back again, mate. And looking forward to another chat around the 3 weeks of waffle men's and women's footy.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic, and a huge shout out to Paul Persick. He was a little bit under the weather, a little bit crook. So, Paul, when you hear this, hopefully you feel better soon. I know that you have a ton on your plate, so completely understand it, sir. Hopefully, we will see you back for the women's finals preview, the women's finals preview episode, along with more waffle action in a few weeks. Let's jump right into it, sir. Women's have been through rounds 11 through 13, and the men's through rounds 6 through 8. We've also had some state league games that have happened really quickly. The last month of so of footy in the waffle has been absolutely insane.
Yes, yeah, been some good scores, some ups, a couple upsets here and there. Peel in the men's are going along nicely at the top of the ladder with East Perth. Couple of the perennial finalists are struggling to get a spot in the finals this year. West Perth, Subi, and Claremont. And over in the women's, Claremont again, they've lost a couple of games. We'll talk about as we go through. The battle for the final spot in the four is going to go down to the wire. So it's pretty exciting stuff. From a WA perspective, the state games didn't quite go as planned for Western Australia in both the men's and women's. Particularly the men's side was a very disappointing result there, and I'm sure we'll probably touch on that a little bit later on. But yeah, looking good. The women's is getting down to the final 3 rounds, so getting pretty exciting there. In the men's, we're just about to the halfway stage, and we've got the biggest round of waffle football for the season coming up this weekend.
Yeah, WA Day coming up very, very soon. Always look forward to it. Let's jump into it. We'll start with the women's. Round 11 was where we left off really quickly, going through the results as we see Subiaco get a nice little win over Swan Districts 44-33. Claremont survive a scare from the Bulldogs of South Fremantle 29-28. East Fremantle continue their very good run so far this season with a 43-26 win over the Falcons of West Perth. And Peel Thunder get off the schneid, finally getting their first win of the season, beating the fellow first win team this year, beating East Perth 42-23, a cracking game. But Claremont being a little shaky, I would have thought Claremont would have won this one a little bit or a little bit easier, but a huge win for Claremont, edging out South Fremantle, kind of staving off what was a losing when continues to be a team that's not performing as well as they're used to.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, a good win there for Claremont over the Bulldog women. Inaccurate kicking kept from Claremont. We talked about this a lot with the women's. It usually causes the team to lose, but Claremont's abundance of behinds actually got them enough to defeat South Fremantle, even though they kicked 3 goals to South Fremantle's 4. Yeah, so Claremont, yeah, struggling a little bit there. South Fremantle were my preseason pick for the premiership. They may struggle to make the finals in the women's by looks of things. So Claremont just hanging in with that win. We had talked about the last catch up around Subiaco and losing most of their games around the 15, 16 point mark, and they turned that around to beat Swans. Unfortunately for me, but well done to Subiaco, and that kept the season alive for them. It was a really important win for the Subiaco women there. East Fremantle and West Perth, that could be a precursor to the grand final, the way things are shaping at the moment. So East Fremantle got up there, and Peel, we talked about hoping that Peel could get a win for the competition's sake and for their sake, and they managed to do that against the Royal. So the battle for the wooden spoon is also on in the women's as well.
Yeah, very, very interesting. I remember keeping track of some of these results and was like, and I wonder if Peel would get it. And when I saw it was like I said, I was happy for Peel to get the win. So at least you don't have the donut in the win column. That was fantastic. We jump over round 12. as we see it, West Perth knock off Claremont by 2, 42-40. Subiaco with a nice little smackdown of East Perth, 70-10. Swan Districts bounce back after the loss to Subi with a nice, impressive win over the Bulldogs of South Fremantle, 56-45. And East Fremantle goes hold my beer to the Subiaco East Perth as they absolutely trounce Peel 105-0. Wow.
Yeah, a couple of one-sided results there, as you probably would have expected looking at those fixtures. But yeah, the East Fremantle Peel game, very disappointing when the team can't even put 1 point on the board. Massive win for the Sharks, and percentage could well be a decider. And I think that's probably enough now for East Fremantle to sew up top spot. Their percentage is a lot greater than West Perth and Claremont, who are a couple of games behind. South and Swans, a missed opportunity for South Fremantle. That loss has probably made it very, very difficult for them to make the finals now. A good win for Swans. It almost guarantees them a spot in the finals, although they're only a game ahead, and we can talk about what's coming up for those teams. Subi, a good win over East Perth again. Subi needing that win to keep their spot, keep alive their chances for the finals, and another big game between Claremont and West Perth. So Claremont, a couple of thrillers. In a couple of weeks, they managed to get that one in the previous round against South, but West Perth held on and won this one by 2 points, in a big win for West Perth, which enabled them to jump the Tigers into second place on the ladder. So well done to West Perth.
Yeah, fantastic. And we'll see that the 2 point margin continues on in this next round as we go to it. Subiaco get a nice little win over Peel Thunder, 65-22. West Perth with another 2 point win, beating South Fremantle 36-34. East Fremantle pretty much stamped themselves as the most likely chance to win this minor premiership, beating Claremont 33-12. And Swan Districts decide to hand the smacketh down to East Perth 114-13 to end the round. West Perth, another 2 point win and continuing a very solid season for the Falcons.
Yeah, well done again to West Perth. They're getting a good win over South by that couple of points, and obviously shows something when a team can hold on with these close victories. So that augurs well for them in the final. So a great win there for West Perth, again denting South Fremantle's hopes of making the finals, pretty much shutting the door for them, I think. Good win for Subi as well over Peel, probably not by as big as they would have hoped. And then it's East Fremantle. Claremont, a bit off the ball at the moment, looks like, for the Tigers. They're going to have to turn it around over the next couple of weeks. They've got pretty easy run home, playing both Peel and East Perth in their last 3 games. So you'd imagine 2 pretty one-sided results there, and also Subi in the middle. So you'd imagine Claremont would still come home with three wins in their last 3 games. And obviously Swans are an important percentage boost there, because their percentage was lower than both Subi and South Fremantle. Still is significantly lower than Subiaco's. So that's where Subiaco, even though they're a game behind in those last 3 games, if they can pick up a couple of wins and one more than Swans, they will potentially jump Swans into that final spot in the 4. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, especially the percentage becomes interesting as you get into these last couple of games. Is do you see a Swans try to put up a few more points late just to try to boost that percentage a little bit? It'll be fun. Again, 3 rounds left in the women's competition. It's always fun to see this chase towards the finals. Let's jump over to the men's again. We're still very early in the competition. Let's jump back to round 6 as we see East Fremantle get a nice little win over Subiaco, 109-52. Peel Thunder continue to put up points as a 164-51 win over the Falcons. Swan Districts, I remember you were quite happy when I got a hold of you after this one, as Swan Districts knock off Claremont 63-46. South Fremantle beat the Perth Demons 74-37, and East Perth beat West Coast 115-41. Some cracking games in this one, a few lopsided scores, but again, as a Swans man, you had to be happy. A win over Claremont, who seems to be a team that you had some trouble beating there for a while.
Yeah, so going back to 2013, it's been a while since Swans managed to get the points down at Tigerland. So yeah, an exciting win for Swans there in that game. The last quarter they pulled away, kicking 4 goals to 1 to manage run away with a victory there. So including 3 games at the showgrounds when Claremont was being redeveloped. There's 11 games in a row that Swans were unable to get a win down at Claremont. So Claremont had the wood over Swans, but that's hopefully has ended now, or at least for a little while, at least anyway. So that was a good win. But probably the highlight of this round, or low light if you're a West Perth supporter, was that performance by Peel Thunder against West Perth. So Peel kicked their highest ever score, only their second ever 100-point margin, which is now the biggest, 113 points. They've never won by much in their 27 years of playing in the WAFL. So a massive victory for Peel. West Perth, their most disappointing performance for a number of years. They haven't lost by over 100 points for since 2017. So it's been a while. That was their 10th biggest ever defeat for a team that's been around since 1891. That's a pretty big defeat for West Perth. So very disappointing for them. They did bounce back the next week, and we'll talk about as we get to look at that next round's review. South's a good win over Perth. Perth have really been hit by injuries. Charlie Constable's a big loss. So we're out without Sam Simpson as well. Corey Byrne has also been injured, and they've lost a couple of other players, like Aaron Clark as well. So injuries starting to take toll for the Demons, unfortunately. Just see them slide down the ladder. And East Fremantle a pretty comprehensive victory over Subiaco, who are also in the midst of a 4-game losing streak at the moment. And the Sharks are on the improve.
Definitely, for sure. Let's jump over round 7. Got a couple of absolute cracking games here as we see South Fremantle edge over Subiaco 79-72. Peel Thunder continue its strong form, beating Swan Districts 88-69. Claremont bounce back with a nice win over the Perth Demons 103-46. East Perth survive a scare from the Sharks as they win 63-66 over East Fremantle, and West Perth bounce back with a nice impressive win over West Coast 156-64. I mean, a cracking game between East Perth, the East Derby, East Perth v East Fremantle, 3-point game. Absolutely great game at Fremantle Oval.
Yeah, that was definitely the game of the round. It would have been billed as the game around between the second and third place, or second and fourth place team on the ladder at that stage. And yeah, it was a great game. Went down to the wire. The siren going as I think the ball was in East Perth's forward line. I did try to capture the last 10 minutes or so of that game, as I was unable to get to the Swans game due to personal reasons for that day. But yeah, an exciting finish between East Perth and East Fremantle, and yeah, good signs for the Royals again to hold on for that, to keep in pace, keep in line with Peel at the top of the ladder. A great effort by the Royals, but the Sharks showing that they are just about there. We've had a couple of close games, East Fremantle this season. They're probably taking over Swans' mantle with it is goal difference is games decided by less than a goal. They've had I think 3 or 4 this year, so the Sharks have been really pushing it at the end of their games, but this one they were on the wrong side. So Peel Thunder continue their way with a good win over Swans. That was a pretty good quality game. Swans fought well, but Peel just were a bit too strong with their AFL listed players being a bit strong in the body. Another close game between Subi and Souths, with Souths getting over the line there just by 7 points, as we discussed. Claremont again, Perth struggling with injuries, and a big win for Claremont for just their second win for the season. And then West Perth turned around their 100-point loss the previous week to win by just under 100 against West Coast. Probably a predictable score. West Perth are too proud a club to cop 100-point thrashing, and they bounced back pretty strongly the next week against the Eagles.
Definitely, and they're one of those that you're going to get a bounce back. You never want to have 2 of those in a row. So nice little impressive win. So we're going to jump to round 8, and I'm going to do it backwards only because the first game of the round probably is the one that sent our text group a little behind the scenes of the podcast. Our text group had an absolute field day with the first game of the round. So we'll actually do this in reverse order. We'll start, fortunately for our two for the Persa Gauchi Cup when it comes to the podcast, as Rick Swans beats Paul's West Perth Falcons 87-74 to end the round. An impressive survival by Fremantle, not just barely edging out Perth 77-73. East Perth beating Subiaco 83-59. Peel again strong as ever, winning 86-42. But the game that sent our text in a tizzy was the West Coast Eagles knocking off the Tigers of Claremont 88-67. And I must say, when you sent this message saying that this result, I had not had a chance to check the highlights yet. I was just waking up when, and I literally, my jaw hit the floor. If my jaw could have come loose and hit the floor and went through it, it probably would have. This, I mean, I know Claremont has not been really good this year. They struggled, only 2 wins on the dot, but this came out of nowhere. As woeful as West Coast had been in a couple of games before, was not expecting this performance. I mean, was this Claremont absolutely just having a horrid day, or is West Coast kind of figuring things out?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, Donny. I was actually one of the few people that tipped the West Coast Eagles to win this game. Actually, I was quite proud of that. Paul didn't believe me, but I was able to show him a screenshot of my
That was
tips.
funny.
Yeah, there was a few people in my tipping contest that did pick this. So I think having a look at the teams, like early in the week, I thought Claremont were going to win this by 10, 12 goals. But when the teams were announced, the Eagles did have a lot stronger side, and I just thought the way that they were lining up in that game, and Claremont would have been a little bit off. Having seen them a couple of weeks earlier against Swans, I saw that they were struggling in quite a few areas. And I had a feeling that Eagles might get up with this one, and yeah, again they did manage to do it. It's still a bit of a surprise, I'm not sure what the odds were, but I'm sure Claremont were pretty much pretty close to unbackable favourites for this game. So very disappointing for Claremont. They seem to just keep struggling this season. I'm not sure what it is. I did tip them at the beginning of the year in our pre-season predictions to fall out the five, despite a couple of our listeners not agreeing with me. But at this stage, I'm going to say, yep, I'm the smart one at the moment, even though there's still half a season to go and they're only a game out of the finals. So even though Claremont are struggling, as I said, they're one game out of the finals. It's so tight. Between fourth place, East Fremantle, they have 12 points. West Coast in last have 8 points. So there's one game separating
Mm-hmm.
7 teams on the ladder. So anybody can still make the finals. They're not out of it yet, even though their teams are on 2-5 records, which is a long way back normally. But because of the tightness of the competition, anyone is still there. But yeah, a big upset for most. Well done, Eagles. And I think they're going to get a few more wins throughout the season. Their AFL squad is relatively healthy. And it's just that balancing act for them. I reckon they might get another 2 or 3 wins by the end of the season. And I think they'll get another one this weekend against the Demons. But we'll talk about that in our predictions later.
West Coast will be that perennial team that they're going to nip somebody and it's going to cost somebody the finals because somebody's going to take them lightly and they're going to shock somebody. West Coast is one of those teams at the bottom of the ladder that could influence the finals because they're going to catch somebody taking a day off and they're going to hurt them. So
Yeah,
I
potentially.
remember you sending that message because Paul didn't when Paul didn't believe you and then you sent the screenshot and I went, well, he's got receipts for sure. So but it was fascinating. Like I said, I just was not expecting that at all. But
Yeah.
again, I think it's great. Again, it's great for the competition that you're seeing such little room between bottom and a finals team. So I think it's fantastic for the competition for sure. So we'll jump to the burning questions really quickly. There's a little bit of a theme to both of these, which I thought was kind of funny as I look back on it later. We'll start off with the women's with Claremont, which again, I'm so used to this Claremont team being such the top of the sun, top of the ladder, second place, never any lower. I mean, they've lost 3 of their last 4. I just was not expecting it. Is the Tigers premiership is the Tigers premiership chances out the window, or because of how good this team is normally, you still got to give them a shot because there's a lot of experience and a lot of talent on this Claremont side.
Yeah, I think so, Donny. I don't think they're out of it yet. A lot of teams during the season will have a few weeks where they're a little bit down. It's very hard to keep up all 20 rounds in a season or what are they playing the girl? I know women's about 16 rounds. It's very hard to be up consistently. I think their run home, which I briefly touched on previously, they've got Peel and East Perth in their last 3 games. They're going to win those games by 10, 15 goals, probably the way they're going, with both of those other teams at the bottom of the ladder. So that will get some confidence up. That'll probably get their mojo back. And I think they will be pushing back for top 2. So I don't think they're out of it, but it looks like East Fremantle's it's theirs to lose at the moment. I think they look pretty strong, and I think the Sharks will probably at this stage, I'd be pretty confident of going back to back. But yeah, the finals is a completely different ball game, as we know. In the last few years in the women's, it's been the team that's dominated the home and away season that has fallen over and not won on grand final day. So I think they're still alive, but hanging in there at the moment.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And they have Subi sandwiched in between those two games. So
Yeah,
it's not like they have a pancake run in with Subi needing to get as many points as possible to stay in that chance to get that last spot with Swan Districts and South Fremantle.
yeah,
It'll be interesting. I'm with you. Again, I just Claremont is too good. Claremont is too good a side. There's so much talent there. And again, you've got two very winnable games. Get some confidence. You steal that. You get that Subiaco win. You go 3-0 into the finals. You get some confidence. And I think anything is possible in the finals, as we saw last year. So we jump to the as the team that you kind of said is East Fremantle has a 2-game lead with only 3 games left. I mean, is this the Sharks minor premiership, or do you think there's a way that Claremont or West Perth can pip them at the line?
yeah. I had a bit of a look at this. I think they're 2 games clear. So, and their percentages, they're about 100 percentage points clear of both West Perth and Claremont. So I can't see East Fremantle losing 2 of their final 3 games, which they would have to do, and by considerable margins. East Fremantle got Swans, East Perth, and South Fremantle. You pretty much pencil them in for a win against South Fremantle and Swans, and you'd pretty much etch it in stone that they will beat East Perth considerably. So I can't see East Fremantle falling from top spot. The battle, I think, is between West Perth and Claremont for second. And just because I think of the run home with Claremont playing the bottom 2 sides, I think they may just have enough to pit West Perth, although West Perth have got also 3 pretty winnable games for them, playing East Perth, Swans and Subi. So, yeah, I think East Fremantle will finish top. Interesting to see who they'll play in the second semi-final.
Yeah, I think Swans is the danger team for this one. That this game against Swans this week is probably the most dangerous of the 3 games that they've got left, just because again, Swans is a team that on their day can put up a lot of offense. So it'll be fascinating to see how East Fremantle does in this. I'm with you. I probably see them winning at least 2 of the 3, and then there's no way that either West Perth or Claremont get the win. I think this is Fremantle's minor premiership. The question will be is, can they take that form into the finals? Because the last time that they did, Claremont pipped them in the grand final, and then they proceeded to do the opposite of that in the next season. So it'll be fascinating. These last 3 rounds are going to have me glued to my iPad to watch these. It's going to be so much fun. We'll jump over to the men's, and it's very interesting. We have 4 teams at 2 and 5 right now. As you kind of said, it's so tight. A frog's behind may be the only thing looser than this particular end of the ladder. But we see Claremont at the bottom, which is a little bit of a shock. Are you surprised to see Claremont down in the bottom 4 of the WAFL ladder?
As I touched on earlier, I'm not at this stage. As I said, I did tip them to fall out the finals. But again, it's pretty tight. They may be, where are they, 7th on the ladder at the moment, game out the finals. They win. They're playing Peel this week, so a hard game for sure. And Peel is on the back of a 5-game winning streak, but it's not without a chance for Claremont to win. It's a wet weekend this weekend, Donny. I'm not sure if you've seen the forecast. Winter has finally hit Perth. We've actually had some storms and wet weather, and it's expected to pour down tomorrow. So Claremont,
Take your ponchos.
may have yeah, definitely ponchos and everything else. So Claremont not without a chance there, but they're going to have to start winning. Interesting stat that I pulled out for you for the stat of the day is only 3 times ever have West Perth, Subi, and Claremont, who are all out of the finals at the moment, have missed the finals together. So the last time was 1997, which was in fact the first time Peel were in the competition. 1992 and 1963 are the only 3 years since Claremont came into the comp nearly 100 years ago in 1926 that those 3 teams, West Perth, Subi, and Claremont, have missed the finals together. So, there's a bit of history this year if they don't make it. But obviously there's plenty of time to go. There's lots of footy left, not much in it. So yeah, I've got no idea who's going to make the finals at this stage. Even East Fremantle, with their points penalty and that loss to West Coast. You mentioned earlier that West Coast are going to cost somebody maybe a spot in the finals by pulling up an upset, and that East Fremantle loss to the Eagles could be very, very troublesome for them when we get to the end of the season. So yeah, it's close. I'm hoping the results keep being nice and tight. If Perth East Perth and Peel continue to win, and South Fremantle as well, good luck to them. But that means the rest of the ladder is going to be very, very tight.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating going forward. And we'll jump to the top of the ladder with both Peel Thunder and East Fremantle are atop of the ladder. For you, sir, which team do you think is in better form right now?
Just to you're still getting your East strong, mate. East Perth, East Fremantle,
Ah,
East
dang
Perth,
it.
Peel are on top.
Yeah, dang it.
That's okay. I won't hold that against you.
Sorry
It's
about
all
that.
good. You're a long way away. Yeah, no, I think they're both looking really, really strong. The team, I've obviously seen them both play against Swans. East Perth were very, very good. They've got a very strong midfield. Peel are still benefiting from their AFL players, but their obviously WAFL contingent is very strong. They have lost Jacob Blight, so he was signed in the mid-season draft by Richmond, so they'll lose him from this week on. But I don't think that's a problem for them. They've got still a lot of depth in their big man stocks, particularly from the Dockers players, and there's a couple of strong players in their reserves that would probably be first choice league players for the Thunder, but their AFL contingency is keeping them out. I wouldn't be surprised if these two teams end up probably 3 or 4 games ahead of the rest of the pack. I haven't seen South Fremantle this year. My jury's out with South Fremantle. I'll see them in a couple of weeks when they play Swans. They've got a big game this weekend as well. So I think Peel and East Perth are probably 3 or 4 games better than the rest of the team by the end of the season. But just takes a few injuries, and things can change. So who knows? I'm not hoping for injuries for anyone, of course, but but I think they're looking both pretty strong. To answer your question, I would say Peel maybe just ahead of East Perth at this stage. Just.
So my apologies to the East Perth fans. One of those I was trying to do the script quickly, and I probably wrote it down and didn't double check it. So I'm glad that he pulled me up on that. I don't mind that. I will gladly wear that error for sure. So we'll do one little question outside of the WAFL competition, and that is state leagues, because both the women and the men have played a game against the Sandful over the last month or so, since the last time that we talked. And unfortunately, as we discussed off mic, neither WAFL side came up with the chocolates with the Sandful women and the Sandful men coming over to Optus Stadium onto WA soil and getting wins for the Crow Eaters. Is this a little concerning for you that state league games, again, some states put a lot into it, some don't? Is it a little concerning that the WAFL had 2 home games for both of these games against South Australia and fell short?
Yeah, particularly definitely on the men's side, it was a very disappointing result. To lose by 10 goals, it was the biggest loss for a number of years for the West Australian side against South Australia. I'm not sure they get the selections right for WA. There's a couple of young players in the team that they just want to show for opportunities to get drafted. South Australia seem to take it a bit more seriously and pretty much send their best team. South Australia had 13, I think, first choice state players unavailable for the game. So imagine if they played, the result could have been, twice as bad. So I'm also not convinced on the selections, the coaching, the idea to have a coach who is not actually involved in the league at the moment may be an issue. Certain players should have been picked that weren't picked. Players like Jai Bolton, how can you have a player of his caliber not get selected in the last 3 state teams? I don't understand that. There's a lot of other WAFL supporters don't understand. Clearly still the best, the top 5 players in the state. I just don't. I don't understand some of the selections, as I mentioned. But to South Australia's credit, they ran and ran and ran. WA seemed to play a chipping game, which wasn't really suited, I don't think, to our style of play. And I think South Australia, they also benefit from a higher salary cap. than WA. So we're restricted to what recruits we can get, how many players we can get into the competition. So it's not necessarily an even matchup, but we should still not lose by that amount of points. It was very
Mhm.
disappointing considering the last 4 years, even though South Australia have won, the games have been relatively close and well fought. So hopefully this is just a outlier, and next year they can put up a better performance back in Adelaide.
Mhm.
Next year, let's hope so. And the women's first time that WA girls have played a state match against South Australia, so a bit of history there, and
Mhm.
obviously South Australia getting the chocolates in that one as
It
well.
was a good one. It was a good one. I remember watching this replay, and at first I thought South Australia was going to roll over WAFL, because roll over the Western Australian team, because the Sanford jumped out to a 2 or 3 goal lead really quickly, and I was like, "Uh-oh, this could get ugly," because the Sanford put some of their elite midfielders in the entire competition in there. So I was a little interested to see how it would go, but Zippy Fish was absolutely fantastic in that game. Started leading the WA team back, and it became an absolute cracker that came down to the last couple of minutes of it. Sanford just did just enough to get the win, but I thought it was a fantastic game of footy. I was a little concerned for the Waffle a little bit when I saw the rosters, because I thought Sanford really came out with a strong squad, but Waffle, they held their own. So I was really happy with that game when I sat down and had a watch of that one. So, and the Waffle have nothing to hang their heads on. I thought they played very, very well on that one. So we'll jump to it. Favorite part of the end of the podcast, and that is predicting really quickly. We have round 14 for the women and round 9 for the men. We'll do this super quick because I know a time crunch that you've got to get going. So we'll do this quick. Start with the women. Round 14, West Perth, East Perth. I like the Falcons in this one. Who do you like?
West Perth by how many? 100?
I hope not. I hope not. I hope
Yeah,
it's a little bit closer than that, but I
it'll
agree
be a
with you
big
on
one.
that one.
But
We'll
the
jump
wet
to
weather might.
yeah. Yeah, I think the wet weather will even things out a little bit. So you may see an upset. You may see an upset in this one, just because I think the weather may neutralize a game like this. This next one I think could be the one that could be interesting. Is South Fremantle hosting Subiaco at Fremantle Community Bank Oval. Doggies, Lions, who do you like?
Last chance for South Fremantle. Lose this, they're done for the season. So I'm going to pick South Fremantle to get up at home.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think South Fremantle, but I think that's going to be a cracker. This one I don't think I have to ask. Claremont and Claremont Big playing Peel, so I'm not even going to waste the breath
Yep.
asking. We'll jump to the last one. Your beloved Swans hosting the Fremantle Sharks at Steel Blue Oval. Can the Black Ducks get an upset?
Oh yes, let's say yes. Yes, it's a big weekend. We haven't actually. I have got a few minutes to spare, so I want to touch on one thing. Actually, no, I'll leave that for the men's game. But yeah, let's go with Swans just to have a slight upset in this
I
one
will
by
I
two.
will I will tip the Sharks, but it will not shock me if Swans win. The Swans win this one with the weather it is. I think it could neutralize everything out. So Swans are a real hot crack in this one. I'm going to tip East Fremantle, but I think Swans are in it up to their ears on this one. So we'll jump over to the men's competition. Round 9 sees Claremont hosting the Peel Thunder in this one. Who do you like?
Peel will be too strong. They'll win their sixth game of the year and be 7-1 on the ladder for the first time in their history.
Yep. I got Peel in this one too, but again, Claremont, you just never know. And the way this competition is, as soon as I think I've got it figured out, you have no bloody clue. So picking Peel, but you never know on this one. We jump
Yep.
over to Sullivan Logistics Stadium as Subiaco take on your beloved Swan Districts. Again, I'll ask, sir, can Swans pull it off, or are the Lions just too strong?
Yep. So this is where I just wanted to highlight a massive achievement. Swan District's player Tony Knott will become the seventh Western Australian footballer to play 300 WAFL games, joining the likes of Mel Whitten, Bill Dempsey, Brian Peake, and obviously a few others, Jack Sheedy, Chris Miller. Absolute champions of the game. Tony Knott is probably going to probably the last player to achieve 300 games. You're only playing 18 games a year. If you played 3 finals, 20 games a year. So it's going to take a monumental effort by anybody else to get this, to reach this milestone. So on a big shout out to Tony. And in that case, I think Swans will ride on that celebration and defeat Subiaco in this game. Subiaco would be losing their fifth game in a row if this is the case, and that's very rare for the Lions. But I think Swans will have too much riding on this game, and Swans form has been pretty good over the last few weeks. So Swans by a couple of goals, maybe 15 points. We'll go with this.
I love the fantastic story. I'll jump with you on this one, and I will tip Swans in this one. The fun one, Perth v West Coast at Henry Street Oval in Northam. Fun one in this one. I agree with what you said earlier in the podcast. I think West Coast has started to put a stronger list on the field. I think unfortunately Perth, some of their really good signees, unfortunately they've had injury issues. I like the Eagles in this one. I think West Coast get the chocolates.
Yeah, I haven't seen the selections for this game yet. They're not out being a Sunday game, but I think the Eagles may get up with this one. Perth's injuries again, I'm not sure who's back, but if they do get some of those players back, they might be a chance. But I think the Eagles will win, and Perth will be last to 10th place on the ladder, which surprisingly will be the first time ever they've been in 10th place on the ladder if they lose. So,
Oh boy. Unfortunately, the record you don't want to ever get. And then we'll jump to Monday, June 3rd, and Monday, June 3rd for me here, WA Day in WA. So what do? Let's have a couple of derbies as we have the Fremantle Derby, South v East Fremantle. Who do you like in the Frio Derby?
yeah, so the biggest day in West Australian football outside of the AFL. The derbies, WA Day derbies, South Fremantle, East Fremantle, they're expecting a big crowd. Unfortunately, the weather it's not going to be too good as it was last year. It was horrendous
Damn it,
last
weather,
year.
start being better.
Yeah, they had to stop the game last year with lightning.
I remember.
Yeah, so anyway, I think I said, I'm not sure on South Fremantle. Haven't seen them. Seen East Fremantle a couple of times. I think the Sharks will get over the line in a close one. Even though South Fremantle have had the root on the Sharks, I think they've won the last 6 or so WA Day derbies. But I think it's East Fremantle's turn this time round by a couple of goals again.
I'll go with you on this one. I think I'm going to tip the Sharks on this one, but I think a good old classic Frio Derby will be fantastic. And then the Perth Derby, West Perth v East Perth at Pentanet Stadium.
For me, I'm going to go another away team. Looks like I've gone all the away teams this week. Last week was all the home teams. I think East Perth will be too strong. I was a bit disappointed in West Perth last week, particularly in their second half. I think that's why really Paul was sick because Swans won the Gouty Persic Cup last week. West
He's
Perth
going to
should have won
laugh
that
so
game
hard when
by
he hears
miles.
this.
Yeah, they were all over us at halftime. The people I was around were going to leave at halftime, but we stuck in and got up. So I think East Perth, and a shout out to young Scott Nelson from West Perth who had a bad break of his ankle. It didn't look good, so all the best in his recovery for that. But yeah, East Perth will get the chocolates, I think, in this one.
Yeah, it'll be fun when I'm with you on this one. I think East Perth, the Royals, just a little bit too strong for West Perth, but again, another classic Perth Derby. Cannot wait for that one. So I know it's a little bit shorter, unfortunately, with Rick's time crunch. We had to do this a little bit quicker than we normally do, and with no Paul, we don't have some of the great analogies that he comes up with here. So we will end today's episode again. We're trying to get these in because I want to have one more episode before the women's finals get started. So that is going to do it for another WWA for a waffle wrap up. Like before we go really quickly, how are things at wafootyfacts.com? I don't know. .org. I'm gonna
.net,
remember one of these
.net,
times. I
.net,
saw my
.net.
.net. One of these episodes, I'm gonna remember it correctly.
I'm gonna put a little thing across the screen next time for the camera for you, mate. That's all right. I think people will find it anyway. Hopefully, no, all good. I made a couple of other little updates, a couple of little charts to my team records pages just last night actually. As I got a question on some minor premiers, so I've got a couple of tables. You can see how many times each team has won premierships, minor premiers, and also wooden spoons. Continually updating the site. Each week. So keep an update on my site updates channel and my Facebook and Twitter social media channels, hashtag Waffle Footy Facts, and obviously the website wafflefootyfacts.net. So I appreciate the shout out there, Donnie, too. Cheers,
I'm
mate.
gonna write it. I'm gonna write it down in my notes section so I don't ever do that again. But it always gives me a chuckle. So and I don't
It
mind
does.
being again. I
Still
don't
good.
mind being pulled up. I'll make errors. I'm gonna bugger something up for sure. So
Yeah,
that is gonna
we all
do it. That is gonna do it for another episode of Waffle Wrap Up. Again, a little bit shorter than normal, but again, We want to make sure we give the WAFL its due when it comes to its coverage. Again, another magnificent competition. So much fun. Women's getting close to finals and the men's getting closer to halfway through, and a long footy season still to go. So that's going to do it for another episode of Donnie's Disposals. Thank you for listening. If you like what you're listening to, please like and subscribe, and we will see you again with more footy coverage very, very soon.